everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Meet a Scientist. Today we are going to meet Mike Puzzo, who works with California State Parks. Let's go meet him. Meet a Scientist.
How you guys doing? My name is Mike Puzzo. I'm an environmental scientist for California State Parks.
What do you study and where?
What do I do? So as a environmental scientist, I am responsible for managing our natural resources throughout the Colorado Desert District. And that includes Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, Anza Borrego Desert State Park, and Palomar Mountain State Park. And our natural resources include all of our plants and animals. So as an example, we have a number of invasive species that we deal with, mostly in the way of plants, but definitely some animals as well. One example might be tamarisk. So tamarisk comes into an area, into a riparian zone, where there's lots of water, and it starts to take over the area and outcompete native plants. And that takes away really essential critical habitat for species like leaf-spells vireo and peninsular bighorn sheep. So what we try and do is we remove those invasive species, in this case the tamarisk, so that it helps to restore those ecosystems, so that that habitat that's really specific and really special to these animals can then regenerate and become a really healthy ecosystem.
What kinds of tools does a scientist like you use?
What kind of tools does a scientist like myself use? Well, currently, pretty boring stuff. A lot of what I do is computer-based, but I do get to get out in the field every now and again, so sometimes I get to use a chainsaw if we're going back to the example of the tamarisk, if we're cutting down tamarisk. So sometimes I get to use a chainsaw. When we're preparing for a prescribed burn, that might also be the use of a chainsaw or hand tools. Again, as we prepare, say, 100 acres up in Cuyamaca for a prescribed burn. We do some data collection when we're preparing for any one of our larger projects. We want to have a baseline of data before we begin, and then some data afterwards to see change that occurs because of the project that we're doing. So with that data collection, good old pencil and paper, just collecting some data. We might use, we're going to be using GPS units, so we're going to be using our phones to collect data. It's about the tools that we use, yeah.
What do you love most about being a scientist?
I think it's probably two reasons. One is that when I get out in the field, I get to go to some absolutely just flat out gorgeous places. Here within the park, but I'd argue within all of California, and maybe even within the western United States. Like places like Carrizo Gorge are just flat out gorgeous. You can go there and you feel like you've kind of stepped out of time or stepped back in time, and that there's very little evidence of people out there. And it's super quiet and peaceful, and the beauty of it just kind of blows your mind. Also places like the top of Cuyamaca Peak just makes me think of the Sierra Nevada. Again, I think going to places that are just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. The other is the group of the people that I work with. It's a really nice collection of people that are, have this focus to help the park, help the resources. They're just good people, and it just makes for a nice community, a really nice community of people to work with.
Tell us about the coolest moment you have experienced in the field.
Well, I've been in this field for 18 plus years. And I've been super, super fortunate over the years to work on a whole bunch of different wildlife related research, a bunch of wildlife projects that included moose, black bear, foxes, elk, mountain lions, bobcat, bighorn sheep, deer. So to be involved in these research projects, to be capturing some of these animals, to strap a GPS collar on them, to take different measurements on that animal, then to turn it loose, and then over a period of time to watch it as it moves throughout its landscape, and to watch it be an animal in its natural environment is a pretty spectacular experience, just to get an understanding about what it is that they do and how it is that they survive and how well they have done so over such a long period of time. It's a beautiful thing.
Why did you want to become a scientist?
Very, very philosophical question, why I became a scientist. As ever since I can remember as a kid, like I was always spending a lot of time in the woods playing with my brother and my friends and stuff, doing, I don't know, a whole bunch of different things. And as I grew up, I just continued to have a draw to being outside in nature and going for hikes and just, I don't know, just observing and being intrigued and enjoying being outside in the environment. And so I think it was just kind of a collection of, my entire childhood that kind of led me to, making that decision about going to college and getting a degree in wildlife management and then continuing in this field. So it's just basically a lifetime of experiences leading to this point.
What kind of schoolwork and or experiences set you on this path?
I graduated from the University of New Hampshire in 2002 with a degree in wildlife management. And right after that, I started just getting basically whatever wildlife experience, because my degree being in wildlife management, that was my initial interest. And so getting whatever job I could in wildlife management. I think that I kind of set myself up well. In college, I worked in jobs that were wildlife related, and was fortunate enough to have an internship in Yosemite between my junior and senior year of college, which really just opened up my eyes. Being from the East Coast and growing up on the East Coast, and then having that experience at 21, being out in Yosemite for a whole summer, living in the backcountry, was just totally just mind-blowing and eye-opening. And so that kind of really paved the way towards, once I graduated college, working on the East Coast for a year, but then coming out to the West Coast and being out here since 2003, and just seeing some amazing things. So just lots of different job experiences, just kind of stepping myself from one to the next.
If you could be any plant or animal, which would you be and why?
That is a great question. If I could be any plant or animal, what would I be? That answer has changed so many times over the years. When I was a little kid, it was always some like big megafauna, like some big carnivore that was like super powerful and could like just be awesome, right? I think now I like the idea of, like, obviously we can't time travel, but I would like to be like some giant sequoia or some coastal redwood, something that is massive and something that has lived for a really, really long time, to kind of see how things change over time. I really like the idea of having that perspective of seeing things, again, change over the course of, decades, centuries, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, be a big old coastal redwood or giant sequoia.
Meet a scientist. That was so awesome. A big thank you to Mike Puzzo for sharing with us the really cool job that he has. We'll see you guys next time.